Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, knife community. As promised, we're going to be talking about some crane knives today. And I am going to do my best to help you date your kissing crane Robert Klaas knife. This is a very confusing topic. It's about as clear as mud if you are reading excerpts from Goins or Levine's or the internet and blade forums. There is no 100% definitive source for dating some of these older knives from pre-1972, but there are clues and there are some examples I have found that I will talk about with you. Unfortunately, I don't have all of my knives handy with me, so I am going to do my best to talk off of my memory and examples I have owned or do still own to share what I have found. It's something I've researched pretty extensively, and some of this is going to be opinion. You're not going to find this wrote down anywhere. You're not going to find this documented anywhere, because the Robert Klaas firm changed hands and changed locations multiple times, so the records are not very solid prior to 1972. But there are still ways we can date some of them just by experience and knowledge. That being said, it's Stag Sunday, guys. Sorry for the long intro, but let's get into it. So, as said before, 1972 and onward is the easiest to date. And in that time frame, there were a lot of club knives made by Kissing Crane, NK, CA, and anniversary editions, and most of those are not going to, you're not going to have to do any math, because most of the time it is printed on the knife somewhere. As this example, the 145th anniversary, 1834 to 1979. Well, yeah, that's 145 years, 1979. Easy peasy, right? Limited edition of 2000, number 1250. This is a Stag lockback anniversary edition. So, club knives, anniversary knives, sure, no problem. They're dated. But this knife, and here's the NK CA 1980. I think they called this a humpback whittler, if I remember right. This is the 1980 NK CA club knife. These are pretty common, 12,000 of these made, but I really like this pattern. I try to pick these up every time I come across one for a reasonable price, because man, they're pretty, and they do a really good job of matching the Stag. Every example of this knife I have is very well matched side to side on the Stag. I mean, no pith, good hafting. Really like these. But anyway, this one's marked 1980. This one's 1979. You know, these knives are 2 years apart. But from 1972, I have one, I don't have it handy. From 1972 to 1986, the Kissing Crane knives were dated with a Roman numeral system. And why they went with this, I have no idea. It is confusing. But in 72, they started adding Roman numeral XI, which stands for 11, to the year 1961. So you would add the Roman numeral to 1961 to date the knife. So we started with XI. 11 plus 61 gives you 72 as the first year. And they ended in 86, which would be XXV 25 plus 61 gives you 86. And that gives you the span of time for the Roman numeral dating. And that is the easiest one to date, other than the club knives. So I'm trying to do this slowly to where y'all can follow along, because it is very confusing. 72 to 86, Roman numerals. Club knives, usually dated. If the club knife is not dated, the anniversary will be on there, and you add that to 1834. If it said quality for 150 years, this would be a 1984 instead of a 1979. You can add the years to the start date of 1834 if the knife is not dated. So let's move forward from 72 to the 86. Let's move forward of that time frame. From 1986 to 1993, there were no Roman numerals. Here is an example. Little stag whittler pattern. Now, how do we know this one comes from 86 to 93? Because the 72 to 86 knives had the model number followed by the Roman numerals. It would be 1442 XI or 1442 XII all the way up to XXV. This one only has the pattern number 1442. So this knife with only the pattern number is going to date 86 to 93. Starting in 94 and onward. That one's hard to see. Let's do this one. Here's one of my cover photo knives. It's going to have to be this one. Oh, no, hold on. I have another example. Let me dig it out of the box. Perfect. Starting in 94, a prefix of KC was added to the model number for Kissing Crane. 94 and onwards, you will see KC either as a prefix or a suffix to the model number. Now, if you see a tang stamp that says Kissing Crane since 1834, if it says since 1834 on the tang stamp, it is made in China. Here is a bone stag example. This is going to be hard to see. It's very fine print. Handcrafted in China. Here is a Robert Klaas canoe. Says since 1834. Both of these knives are made in China. If you see since 1834 on the Tang stamp, whether it be the Kissing Crane knife or the Robert Klaas shield knife, it will be made in China. Now, to muddy the waters even more, Robert Klaas is still in business in Germany. But in the United States, the distribution of Kissing Crane trademark and the Robert Klaas trademark are owned by other companies. I'm not getting into that. But the U.S. distributed Crane knives and Klaas knives are made in China. Robert Klaas still makes Kissing Crane knives in Germany and owns the Hen and Rooster trademark in Germany and still produces Hen and Rooster knives for the Frost Hen and Rooster trademark imported into America. It's a very tangled web. Very hard to follow. And I hope I'm not confusing y'all too much with this video. So we know 72 to 86 Roman numerals, other than anniversary knives or club knives. We know 86 to 93 will only be model numbers. We know 94 and onwards will have the KC prefix. Until the time, well, I say until the time, even when they started being manufactured in China, they still have the KC prefix. You can see that one right there. It is very fine, very hard to read. KC 3680 or something. I can barely read this one. So the KC prefix went from 94 till present day in the German and China made knives. So what about the pre-72 Roman numeral knives? There are some giveaways. The main one being, I have seen examples of pre-Roman numeral knives with a model number, but no Roman numerals. But the stamps are not as refined as they are on these 86 to 93 knives. This will be a pre-Roman numeral knife here, but you can see how rough this stamp is. It's not very clear, not very defined. Kind of heavy on the ends, light in the middle. And this one has no model number. This one is going to predate the Roman numeral knives. There are some that I've seen, like I said, with a model number and no Roman numerals that will predate the Roman numeral knives by a few years. But no model number can indicate an older knife from, say, the 60s and a little earlier. And you can usually tell by how clean or incomplete the tang stamps are. And there are older examples of the crane tang stamps. They're not very well documented. Another way you can date an older crane knife or klaas knife, or any German knife for that matter, is it will be stamped with the word Ohligs, Ohligs, which was kind of a suburb of Solingen that was incorporated into the city of Solingen in 1929. Now, around 1930-31, there were still some stamps that said Ohligs Solingen, but if it is stamped Ohligs, your German knife is most likely 1930 or before. Now, as to how far before, that can depend on the manufacturer, but you can safely say late 1890s to 1930 if you see an Ohligs marked kissing crane or Robert Klaas knife. There are also some other giveaways, such as some of the earlier German knives having steel pins. It was a way to save money, and they thought it made a stouter design. I've seen some examples of that in kissing crane knives that are definitely going to predate Roman numeral knives, but post-date Ohligs knives. Some of the earlier, like 40s to 60s kissing cranes knives will have just a bar shield, just a straight rectangle bar, and no model number. That's usually a good indicator that it is a earlier 1900s kissing crane knife. So, with all that being said, it can be very difficult to date a Robert Klaas kissing crane knife. But we can, like on ones without a model number or pattern number, such as this little fifth pocket horn-handled knife. Let me muddy the waters up one more time. The newer current produced kissing crane knives by the Klaas factory in Germany do not have pattern numbers on them, but it is very obvious they are a newer knife, a newer manufactured knife. The tang stamps will be very clear. They won't be kind of hit or miss like this example. See, you can barely see the eye on this one. The top of the T is very faint. The middle of Robert Klaas is faint, and Solingen is hardly even there. Oh, it's the R for Rosfrey was pretty popular before the Roman numeral knives as well. Keep that in mind. So, without the Roman numerals, without the KC prefix or suffix, you basically just have to look at the knife, how clean the stamps are, compare them to other examples, the older style rectangle shield, bar shield, the lack of pattern numbers, Ohligs stamps. All of these are indicators that can help you narrow down when your kissing crane knife was made. Now, like I said, you're not going to find this in a book. You're not going to find this in a forum. These are just hints, tips, tricks that you can use to help date your kissing crane knife. And when I talked about a Beretta knife the other day made by Camplin out of Italy, and had mentioned that kissing crane stilettos are made by Camplin Company out of Italy. I think it's a safe bet to say that their sodbusters are too, because their stilettos, even though some of them were marked in Germany, just like these sodbusters are marked in Germany, the build quality is identical to the ones that come out of Italy. And I'm 90% sure that kissing crane sodbusters and stilettos were all made in Italy. And I am unsure of how they got away with marking them Germany. But if you have a kissing crane stiletto or sodbuster, even if it's marked Germany, there's a very, very good chance they are made by Camplin, AGA Camplin, also known as Falcon Knives, out of Italy, just to help muddy the waters up some more. But it's a very broad topic, a very confusing topic, and I hope I just give y'all some tips and tricks to try to date them, because there is no definitive way. There are only clues and things that you can notice through having experience in knife collecting and researching them. So if y'all have one you're having trouble with, man, shoot me an email. I'll try my best to help you with it, if this did not help to clarify it for you. And I know this is a long video, but guys, it's a pretty in-depth topic, and if y'all stuck it out this long, then congrats. I appreciate it. I appreciate each and every one of y'all for being here. And this has been Stag Sunday. And oh yeah, we're over 100 subscribers now. I haven't advertised no giveaway or nothing, because that's not really why I'm here. I'm here to talk about knives and try to educate people and educate myself on things that I haven't learned, because when researching and studying knives, you can learn something every day, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to help y'all and trying to help myself in the process of being involved in this knife community. That being said, the first person who can tell me what this is, who, when, why, what, how, not just the blatantly obvious answer, I'm going to send this to you for that 100 subscriber giveaway. Let me know what it is down in the comments. Details, please. Anyways, guys, happy hunting, happy knife collecting. This is Hillbilly Proud. I appreciate each and every one of you for being here, and I love the interaction we have here on this knife community on YouTube. Y'all have a good one.